You don't have to do this, but this is keeps popping up in the board. Would you sing the chorus of "Hold On"?
Oh shit, he's gonna do it.
Twist his arm.
I don't want to see you ever sad, and everything I've got you can have. So will you take my hand and feel how close I am? 'Cause there ain't nothing I won't do for you. Hold on till you feel a little stronger. Hold on to me. Hold on, everything's gonna be alright. Just hold on to me tonight.
Hey there, Beverly Hills 90210 fans. It's now time to dive deep into an episode-by-episode, character-by-character, song-by-song account of the making of your favorite zip code. With your host, Charles Rosen.
Did I say that? Gee.
Larry
told us
Mullen.
this heinous thing about the real person, and we're going, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferrero.
And growing up, my TV crush is Claire Arnold. So I mean, she has to come on the show at this point.
And Melanie Rose, along with many special guests. And your questions. So sit back and relax because it's totally time for the Beverly Hills 90210 show.
We are we're after the big super show with Chuck, Larry, and Melanie Rose. Melanie, I want to start with you. A lot of people don't know, but you were a producer behind the scenes of the show that dealt with getting all the technical glitches handled. And believe me, we had a few.
We did. We sure did.
But thank you for all the hard work that you did on the show. We all really appreciate it.
I just want to know who was the most inept.
Oh.
Yeah, 33 people. You could just say their initials. You don't have to embarrass anybody. Just curious. Who was the most inept?
Everybody
I know
was.
who the answer is, by the way. There
We all know.
two of them, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody did their best, and with such a big show and with so many people and, only allowing a certain number of people backstage, there were just, it was more traffic issues with getting people into the room. And then we did troubleshoot some tech things. I was on the phone with Tori Spelling and her manager trying to get her squared away. Trying to, keep her calm and at least she was able to pop in for a little bit. Had a couple text conversations, talked to Dana Barron a couple times. Randy Spelling texted when he was waiting backstage. Talked to Noli quickly. And Denise. Denise and I were on the phone for a little bit as well.
Would be, for me, that would be the winner of the the question, Chuck's question.
Well, we got to bring Denise back, but prior to any of them, now it seems to me clear. You need to have Larry, when a band comes to a new venue, they do a sound check. You got to check these guys. You got to tell them to come on earlier than the stars, and have them make sure they know what they're doing. I guess that's you hit the big time now, Pete. They got to do that.
The next time we do a super show,
yes,
Darren said to me, "Yeah, well, I'll see you when I do 40."
Yeah.
I'll see you when we turn 40. I said, what do you mean? I have to take care of myself? 10 years? Is that what you're saying here? I don't know. Because I'm one and done,
It was interesting, though. In defense of Tori Spelling, we did a test before we came on. So something went wonky with her Wi-Fi from the time we did the test to the time that we came on air with the Super Show. Larry, what did you think? I mean, there were some big moments from the special.
For me, thinking about it, Jim Eckhouse's face when he saw Ann Gillespie was great. Really enjoyed seeing him totally going, oh my God, and his jaw dropping. Obviously, the Jamie Walters when he just picked his guitar up and played was just thrilling for me. I had goosebumps there. seeing Noli, you know, she was like, oh my gosh, she's this beautiful woman. Like, it was just amazing to see that. I want to obviously see more of her on October 14th. And just seeing all the kids together and the joy they had for each other, and with Darren and everything, it was just really very successful. And it didn't feel stressful for us, you know, because Pete, you did a fantastic job, obviously, keeping everything going, the questions, and just the demeanor of it was really professional, I thought. And I don't know, I was very proud to be part of it. Everyone did great. Chuck's family, Lindsay was popping, I thought. That was really great, you know.
I loved Lindsay.
I thought she made Chuck look good there. She totally worked in. And then, of course, Randy Spelling saw her show, so it was like setup. It was like a beautiful setup.
Well, I love that they got to be together, you know. I mean, you're picking up all these times that, I mean, everyone was really fun to see or be part of, or this, but the ones that you mentioned, you know, the Jamie Walters, it was, you know, I wanted to run him into a recording studio immediately. You know, he looked so great. I know. And again, like, and Noli, I mean, it looked a little bit, I don't know where she lives, but it's a really nice community.
She looked like a duchess. She looked like a young duchess.
She really did. She looked regal, and that was wonderful. And also then, of course, Randy and Lindsay, as we talked about. I mean, having the kids there together.
And the pre-records were great. The pre-records, the 30-year later things were really fabulous.
The fans loved that.
And then we got to see Brian. It's always good to see Brian.
Oh yeah, he's so solid to see him there. He came with
the chicken coop thing.
Yep, the chicken coop. I liked that.
Yeah, yeah. It was an improv thing. He, you know, I like that Brian kind of rolls with whatever time he thinks it's appropriate, rather than. And it actually was great. You know,
if we would have had a 4-hour special, we could have had every star be on their own, and that we would have had the same kind of kibitzing. But my sister wrote me a text after it was over, and what she admired most is how we all stayed in our seats for 3.5 hours.
Before we came on to do the show, we all had plans. I'm going to drop off here. I'm going to drop off there, and then none of that happened, and we all just sat in our chairs and watched it. Yeah. You know, for me, it was like a super fan's dream. I'm still kind of in shock. I'm sure, Melanie, what about for you talking to Tori Spelling? I know you were trying to help her. Was that fun for you being like, oh, hi, Tori?
It was, you know, I felt so bad for her, and we were just trying so hard to get her on, and she was so sweet, you know, just trying to keep her calm, and that was really cool. And, you know, overall for me, my favorite moment of the Super Show was hands down the Jamie Walters song. The swoon just overcame me, and that's my favorite. I mean, it was all great, but that Jamie Walters song just was amazing.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, so good.
Let me show you guys. I got a couple new shirts. I showed the one, obviously, on the air. This Brandon, Brenda, Dylan, Kelly, Steve, Andrea, Donna, and David with the class and the logo. I think that one's very cool. We're selling like hotcakes the other day. And then we got this one celebrating 30 years. Cast photo there with the October 4th, 1990 forever. And then we made this one. I don't know what we're going to do with it, but I think it's going to, all the money that we make from this particular shirt, we're going to send to charity. And this is, I want to happen to my life. I don't want my life to happen to me. A tribute to Luke Perry. So yeah, we definitely want to do that. I'm working on getting a little Luke Perry thing together too, for all of the fans that are watching this right now. I got reached out to by Rory Karp, who's a director he's done like all the 30 for 30s, a whole bunch of them. And he's very close. He was very close to Luke, and he's going to try to put a little panel together. So I'll keep everyone posted when that's going to happen. Anyway, I thought this event was great, and we were super excited. All the fans, I got to tell you, I was watching all the comments. I went back and watched the show. I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to do that. You should do it on one of like Facebook or YouTube or whatever, because all the comments were great, and it was amazing to see, like, when we were doing it and like someone would pop in, I was like, oh my God, it's you know, Ann Gillespie or whatever. The fans were reacting the same way. Melanie, you were in the chat, right? What was that like?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the chat was going off. Fans were so happy throughout the entire thing. I mean, the sentiments were all great. I think people were overall just impressed that you were able to pull off such a substantial reunion. And, you know, it was great seeing it covered on Tonight last night. Picked it up in a clip at the end of the show. So that was exciting. And all the media coverage has been great. So, I mean, hats off to you, Pete, you know, and you as well, Charles and Larry. You guys really, you pulled it off. It was amazing.
Well, no, but props to Chuck. Yes, the structure of that was very important, and Chuck reiterated that to us multiple times and multiple Zooms.
Script revisions, yep, and we ended up nailing it.
And also Larry tracking down Noli Thornton. Wow.
Even she was impressed. She thought you were like a detective, Larry.
Yeah, I know. I tied some things together. You know, I looked through some public records, and I realized that there was a name connected with her, Bunnin. So I kept tracking him down, and I finally found a link between them. I have to put a little work into Wings Hauser this week. If Wings is out there for some reason watching this, call me.
Please. Come on, stop flying. Land on the perch. So
we need Wings to land. Just don't want to, you know, it'd be so great to see Jonesy in this thing. It would be a hoot and a half. But we also need a main player in that episode. Tiffany. Her name is Tiffany Amber Thiessen, and that'd be great. I mean, I hope she gives us a call back or something. We got to do a little bit of a push this week for her.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Chuck. Yeah.
Tiffany Thiessen.
That's
Amber
right.
has gone away.
She'll always be Tat to me. She'll be Tat.
Yeah, you know, I noticed one of the something that comes to me. You know, you got Facebook, and if one of your friends you get notifications or things, and someone I went on one, and there was like all speculating why Shannon wasn't on and why Tiffany wasn't on. Mm-hmm. And of course, they're two different people, but you know, Tiffany. Particularly for this one, it would really be great. You know, she meant a lot to me in the 1 year I got to work with her, and I hope that she will come on the show that you wanted to be on.
Yeah, and you know, we want Shannon too, but there's a lot going on in Shannon's life right now.
Oh yeah, no, we all love Shannon, and we were hoping she'd come on. It was close, I think. We were down to the day she would have come.
Very close, you know, but listen, they did everything. We all try to do everything we can for her. We love her here, and we're going to keep reiterating that. Also, tracking down Jamie Walters was tough, but I have to shout out.
What got you there finally? What
was the casting? The casting, right? From I want to shout out the person. Colin was the one who got me Jamie Walters' contact. They did the casting for BH. 90210, the reboot
summer show.
Yeah, and he's a lifelong fan, so that was really awesome. All right, guys. Well, so listen, we're here only briefly to talk about that stuff, and then we have 2 pre-recorded interviews that are going to play now. The first one is with Tom Fichter, right? The production designer. We had a lot of fun with him. If you are a fan of like locations, Melanie Rose, obviously. By the way, Melanie, how did everything go with the hunts? Do we have a winner?
Yeah, actually, we announced our winners live on Facebook, and they are Maya Rebecca was in 3rd place, Beverly Thrills 90210 in 2nd, and Tanya M86 was the winner. And we're still picking our most unique submission, so I'm sending all 3 of you the videos that I've selected as the best, so we can pick someone to pop on the show for their creativity.
Well, that's awesome.
Oh, yes. The 3 of us.
I did not win.
Yes, you three. I've picked my favorites, and then I want you guys to narrow it down and pick the most creative. We had so many good submissions. It's so good.
I love the one where I used in the intro where the dude goes to some store. And is this in the competition when he hands and he's asking about the egg? Or
yeah, there's a few good ones for the egg. So yes. Charles, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I have a question. Larry said I did not win. Did you submit for this?
Me?
Was that humor? You said I did not.
No. I signed up for the hunt, Chuck.
Wow.
I did.
Yep.
I did. I wanted to support it. I promised not to win, which early on, so I didn't want to intimidate people. But I did do a couple of the hunt things, and anything that was fairly easy, I did. So.
Hey, Chuck, real quick before we jump into talking about with Tom Fichter about the about locations and the designs and the set designs. You sent me a picture I didn't get to put up the other day.
Darren and Paul and Chuck.
Darren and Paul and you. Tell me a little bit about this photo.
Well, I could have sent a bunch of different kinds of photos from that evening. That was a pretty special evening. That was our holiday Christmas party at Chasen's, the legendary Chasen's, a restaurant in West Hollywood that was a famous for its chili and the stars that it served, like Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart and everyone of that generation. It was a place that I ate a lot as a kid because my parents also liked it for a while there. And that was where I was eating dinner June 4th, 1968, and was ready to drive down to the Ambassador Hotel afterwards to cheer on Bobby Kennedy. So that always will, when I think of Chasen's, that has to come to me, and certainly served as some of the basis for when we did the show with Brenda and the Diary in the 60s. It was the same era for me. But that evening at Chasen's was just great. Mr. Spelling was really happy, given that the year before, when our status during the first year wasn't clear, we ended up at some dive bar in Hollywood that was just so antithetical to the Spelling ethos. This was much more happy time, and to see Darren and Paul there, I think it's one of the few pictures of them together, and it was pretty special. You had that other picture of Paul.
Yeah.
You used to have that one too. That one is a little near and dear to my heart because that one is from the first season. We had a picnic out in the hills of Malibu. That's Dan Attias to my right, who directed in the first year things like The Gentle Art of Listening, and went on to do things like The Next 50 Years and et cetera, et cetera. And that's Paul. And that was a lot of fun that day because nobody, the second one, we were established television show, and you see us with the ties and the formality. Nobody at that first picnic expected us to be having a celebratory picnic, knowing that we were going back to work in a couple of days.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we're going to jump in now to this interview with the production designer, Tom Fichter. I'm going to tell you guys, you're going to absolutely love this. He talked a little bit about making the sets for the beach club and the Peach Pit and the houses. He talked about the interiors and whatnot. And he actually sent us some pictures. I'm going to try to pop those up. So enjoy that interview. We're going to go to that right now. And we will be back on October 14th live when we're going to talk about the hazardous to your health. And we've got Noli coming back and David Hayward, and we're going to try to reach out and get everybody else too. So enjoy this, and thank you for watching the Super Show, and we'll catch you next time. We are joined by Tom Fichter, the production designer for Beverly Hills 90210. Chuck, right? Any interior set that we saw came from the mind of Tom. Is that, would you say that?
Well, it certainly didn't come from my mind, since I can't even, you had to come in and look at the sets that were built prior to you being there. Yes. And design. And I know that we had a lot of retro work, right? We had to fix the sets of the Walsh house. Yes. Because when the kitchen and things, we didn't have money to do breakaway sets. So there was no breakaway walls, I mean. So when you looked at what we had there, we had those sets, and we weren't even we didn't even have soundproofing in the first. Were you there before soundproofing, or?
I was there before soundproofing, definitely. So it rained. It was hard to film. so those metal roofs. So it proves you walked into a TV show that was unlike any other because of how ragtag we were. Is that fair assessment? Oh, that's definitely fair. Now, I'd worked on a sitcom prior to this that was also in a warehouse, so that helped me understand the whole warehouse aspect. But this was, I think, you had just 2 warehouses and maybe 4 sets. Some of them were just shoehorned in there, and none of them. I mean, there was an old Peach Pit which we remodeled because you couldn't even get a camera around in it. And then the Walsh house had no wild walls, so you couldn't get the camera in easily. And the kitchen was incomplete. So I think that was the first thing I did. I'm glad you reminded me. I forgot that I even remodeled the kitchen some. There was a header piece that was always in the way of camera. The floor was a real floor of Satia tile, and you couldn't dolly across it. So I changed any of the tile on the lower part, but there was a landing, upper landing. I left it there because the camera could still see the texture of that. But there were, you know, I don't know if you remember, but the curtains used to puddle in the living room, and all they do is collect dust. And you never saw the puddle anyway, or except at a long shot, but you'd see the dust more. So we went through the set and kind of cleaned all that up and made it more user-friendly for the crew.
Tom, I'm curious, how did you get into the world of Beverly Hills 90210? Had done some stuff for spelling before, or how did you get in?
You know, I had done 6 years in professional theater at the Seattle Repertory Theater, got some contacts, came down to LA. I got a job within 2 weeks on a sitcom, Alf. I learned a lot about television there, although it's quite different than the episode, you know, a single camera show, especially back in 1990. So it does. Research is all part of what you do as a designer, and so I just researched Beverly Hills as much as I could, and I took what was already there as sets and used that as my springboard to add to whatever. And then, you know, I listen to Chuck talk about Beverly Hills High or those kinds of, I get input from writers and all that just help come around to understanding Beverly Hills a little bit. And we also scouted, and scouting in the area helped. And you have a kind of a vision in your head anyway when you hear Beverly Hills. Other than Beverly Hillbillies, you have other ideas of what it looks like and what the people are like. And all that kind of gets thrown in, and you just always have it in your head.
You see the Walsh house, right? The exterior of the Walsh house. And then you have to, well, I mean, it was already kind of created for you. How much do you, do you ever visit the actual Walsh house and say, I want to kind of emulate this inside this house, or are you sometimes looking at things completely like, I want to start from scratch? This is what the Walsh house looks like in your vision.
Oh, I mean, I would have loved to have started from scratch, but you can't do that already into episode 8. So, which I thought the house was nice. It actually was, the location it was based upon was in Altadena, and we used the exterior. I didn't like the transition between the exterior and the interior, partly because there just was no color differentiation. Everything sort of mushed into each other. Each of the rooms kind of mushed into each other. So I changed the color of the entryway, which meant I had to do something at the real location house. So we brought a wall in, I believe, with that color on it. And it didn't matter much because it was all kind of reversed by the prior designer. I think the steps were on the left and not the right, and it wasn't duplicated as accurately as I might have wanted to do. But by changing the color, bringing a wall, I could bring it around to working better. So
chances are she built the set inside before we even found the house.
You know, that's a possibility. I was, you know, there were, 2 designers prior to me, the one who did the pilot, Michelle Minch.
I never met her. She was a very nice woman, came from propaganda. Yeah. Michelle Minch was her name. Who was did the reading. And I remember with those Breakaway Walls, I was so naive and so flustered by the fact that we didn't have any money, Larry, that I just went, oh, okay, if you can't break the wall, but that means the director's going to have to put the camera here or here, and everything will go faster. Because, you know, Duke Vincent, who I got to speak to recently, it was really on the phone. We had a really nice phone call. Wow. And he, it was wonderful. But he, you know, like really get the fear of God into me if I went $1 over budget. So, you know, I look for any compromises were good, not impeding creativity. Until actually we finished one episode, and I went, "What the fuck? Let's just go."
Yeah. Well, that's how you get it started. And Duke's a nice guy, but he can be tough. I watched him being tough with other people, but I always kind of got along with the guys.
Well, he loved, it's funny. Aaron loved actors. Duke loved production people. It was just a complete opposite way of looking at the world. Neither of them liked writers, so there it was.
You guys are always in the hot seat, but those sets also had no backings outside of them, so you couldn't look out any window. It was you could do shadows of trees, but so I actually had some backings painted to look kind of just out of focus. So if you looked out a front door, you'd see some real trees and then this out of focus distant background. We did a lot of cheats. We were non-union so at that time, so you could do a lot of crossover of people. The painter who was not a backing painter, he painted the backing, and we were constantly doing things that you couldn't do. 3 years later when we were unionized, I believe.
Yeah. So you were a non-union employee yourself? Is that one of the reasons that they were interested in you? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I could have done a union. I actually got in the union right before I got the job on 90210, but I didn't sign into it. I had the option to at that point. And I kept going, I don't know anybody in the union, but these other non-union jobs popped up. And now, I mean, within the next 3 or 4 years, it was totally reversed. There were no non-union jobs and everything was union. And that's the way it is now, unless maybe commercials, you might have an option to be non-union, but that's how you find your crews these days. You can't look anywhere else.
And you guys kept adding, knowing the other thing, thinking about what we also had there in the first season, which of course was the high school itself. You kept adding to that set, right? You made it better, soundproofing it. Explain to what you did.
The high school, I think we changed a little bit of the color. We added some rooms, and a room, I believe, which we could redress numerous ways by changing out end walls. It originally, I think the prior designer had decided to put down some symbols on the floor, and Mike Cudlitz had a discussion with her about that. It didn't look right. It wasn't right. And then I think maybe Paul jumped in on that. So when I came in, I was like, no, we're not going to do that. It was part of what would be on a plan, but not on a real set. So we did that, but because we only had the 2 stages, I think we got another warehouse, and we moved the Peach Pit to where the high school was, I believe, something like that. And the high school got expanded in another area. We got to grow, and we got a whole new swing set space behind where the Peach Pit was moved to. And we changed the Peach Pit, as you know, from the apple pan homey sort of look to a kind of a 50s, I don't know. It was like the 50s met the late 80s look with the records and the sort of pattern and all that. And what's that?
Jukeboxes.
Yeah, jukeboxes. We played that all up. And I don't know if you remember the show Fridays, which was a competition competitive to Saturday Night Live on a different network.
Sure. Yeah.
Remember that? And they did a great job of mimicking the set and kind of making fun of it, but also of our characters, where they Luke, Dylan, and then Jason, Brandon, they had a hair fight. Do you remember this?
No, I have to look it up. It's probably on YouTube.
It's hilarious. They spike their hair so it's all pointed up, and then they stab each other with their hair in the sets that mimicked our sets. Oh. And it was, for me, I love looking at the sets, but it was very funny to watch this.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah, you should.
I never knew about the Fridays. I know that on Saturday Night Live that Jason hosted, Shannon hosted, and Luke hosted. And the first sketch with Brandon Jay was so funny. It was written by Al Franken, and everybody all the fans were together, all the cast was together, and Brandon kept going and getting their keys so nobody could drive anywhere, because they were worried about it. And I asked Al, and Al Franken had never seen the show, he claimed, and just wrote it up. And I kind of believe it. And that was Karen and I got to go back to that one, and it was my only time going to be in the studio audience of Saturday Night Live and the after party. So it was a lot of fun for that one. Yeah.
That would have been great.
Fuck Fridays. We were about Saturday Night Live.
It was a much better show, but that I remember hearing it was going to be on, and I had to see what they did. Yeah. But yeah, that's great. You got to get onto Saturday Night Live to watch it. You know,
it was great. It was a lot of fun,
and that was a good time to be there.
But I guess the big set, you know, we start out, and the one that was really must have been exciting for you, of course, was the Beverly Hills Beach Club.
That was the most fun. You know, I'd actually left the show to go do another movie because we all thought that the show was not going to get picked up for season 2. I mean, that's what when I left, that's what I thought. And so I started on this movie, and the movie folded. And the next day I got a call from Paul saying, would you be interested in coming back? And I thought, there's a job. Sure. And it was nice people. So I went back, and that's when you guys told me about the beach club. And I don't know if you remember this, but we went down and we toured it like on a tech scout, I believe. And we went over to get lunch. I'm a very slow eater, and there were 25 of us there eating. And you, Chuck, and Paul came and got me before I think I ordered a salad. Before my salad was brought to me. And you took me back out to the location, which was right next door on the beach. And you started asking me, you know, how do you feel about this? Are you comfortable? And you know, I'm not nervous about scenery ever. This made me nervous because you guys seemed a little nervous. And so I was like, no, it's just scenery. And I've had a lot of meetings with studio heads now since this time. And I'm never nervous talking to them because I'm talking about what I know. So, and I'll leave and producers will go, wow, you did good. And I'll go, oh, thanks. It's just scenery. And you guys walked me out there, and we got back to lunch. Everybody was half done with lunch. I sat down. I was done with lunch before anyone else. That's how nervous I got. I just shoved the salad in. And everybody looked at me like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, nothing. But it was such a great place to get to build that beach club. And, you know, I had to just define it because the sand is just sand unless you put boardwalks in and the volleyball courts, and there's a fence on the left, and then everything was one height. So it was nice to add the second story on to help give it some more mass. It was a lot of fun to do that, and coming up with a logo for it, and just different patterns. And it was,
well, the logo is very similar to the Beverly Hills Hotel itself.
We use the same font,
the same color, the same, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing is that a lot of the color scheme, and Larry, I don't think you know this. You know, we had no vacation. It was like, guess what? You're coming back to work, and so we really had 2 weeks off. Wow. Not even 2 weeks. So we took Avery at 5 weeks old to Hawaii with us, right. And this was, you know, a trip there, and we were staying and Darren Star happened to be at the same place, and we did editing on Spring Dance. And it was terrific. But when we come back and, well, what are we going to do with the beach club? They had the most comfortable lounge chairs. They were very upscale. They were very cool. We took pictures. They're from Florida. Paul, get them. Because at that point, we had no time. So it's like, I didn't care what it cost. You know, just do what you need to do. So we actually used the Four Seasons in Maui in Wailea as the basis of what the Beverly Hills Beach Club would be. By the way,
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
That's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Did you know that was the second season when you got picked up for that? Did you think it was going to go away, or were you in the battles to make sure it came back, or was there even a battle? I'm curious.
Well, I don't think anyone who was involved with the show expected it to go more than 12 episodes, if we even got to 12.
Wow.
In fact, I will. We had the live special a couple of weeks ago, or days ago, whenever it was, and I reminded Darren that I had a Post-it in the back of my. And Post-its were brand new, by the way. and it was right on the wall behind me. And all it said was, DFU, don't fuck up. Because I figured the show had no future, but if I didn't fuck up, maybe someone would ever hire me again. I did not believe that if I did a really great job, that nobody would hire me again. But that's not quite true. But that was the feeling. So once we got to the back 9, as it were, the first 12, the back 9, we got the scripts and like, here's one script at a time, here's 2 scripts at a time. We didn't get a big fulsome order, but once after the Gulf War and we started just shooting up and getting 1 million new viewers every week, we kind of knew something was happening. We did not know we would not get and I remember going to the network to tell them I've got a great idea for the first episode back, how I spent my summer vacation. And I think Sandy Grusow chuckled and said, I know how you're going to spend your summer vacation. And that's when we learned we'd be doing summer episodes.
Oh, yeah, it was summer
and that
episodes.
We were coming back. And all of that was all one big hammer sledge, which is Fox specialized in big hammer sledges.
Well, and then, of course, it's probably the first show I know of that had double ups. And it would be 35 episodes. Wasn't 36 episodes?
32.
There was 32, but I thought there was one that was 36. One, maybe I'm wrong, but that was a crazy time for me because we doubled everybody. We doubled everybody beneath me except for Jill Hinkle, the set decorator. So I would be in a van with one director, and then they would literally drop me off at a gas station to get in the van with the next director, and then I'd tell them what we picked in the current episode. One of the double up episodes, so that they know where that was for them, and then we go pick additional locations. It was nutty and fast paced. I really kind of liked it because I had extra people to do other things too, so I could grow with it, and there was more money.
I was going to say we were paid by the episode. That was the beauty of it.
It was wonderful. It made a big difference in what we could do. Yeah. So you knew it was going to be over 2 or 3 episodes. You could spend a little more money.
How much? Well, go on, Larry. I'm sorry.
I was just going to jump to because we've been to the beach house and a couple of times lately, and thinking about all the challenges you had there because we obviously didn't have the inside after a couple of days, and then you had to recreate it. And sometimes people walk out of the beach house onto a deck, which is obviously on a set. It's not in the practical location. So that was a great challenge. And, we've been able to appreciate, we've done a location scout. We also were at California University and saw this great interior. Watching the episodes, we see this great interior that you produced of this, the cafeteria kind of room. And did that exist actually? I guess these were a couple of questions, but start with the beach house.
Well, the beach house was not easy because we had a couple of real limitations in our warehouse. And that there was no height, so you couldn't go up. In most cases, when you have have a second story or something like that, you would build up 3 or 4 feet so that if somebody looked over a railing, you could have a camera below them looking up. We didn't have any of that, which also meant you can't hide the bottom of a backing, and so the backing really was just sky with a little bit of ocean at the bottom. And so we had that, and it wasn't even a backing that was photographed at the location because we couldn't really afford that. So I found a sky backing that would work with some beach. But if you look closely, where it sort of bent around the corner, there was like a tugboat in there. It was in the fog, so you almost never saw it, but it was there. And we made up the space based on the footprint and what you saw of the location, which, by the way, I don't know if you know it, but that was originally an electric railway stop. That house is where the Pacific Electric Railway stopped to pick up or drop off passengers, and then it became this house. And it was. I thought that you find out all these things when you're on these scouts.
Yeah, well, it's at the beginning of that walkway, so I could see how it's like a terminus. It was the first structure there after it's the first one in Hermosa Beach, right?
Yes,
that's right. Right on the border of Hermosa and Manhattan Beach.
It actually jogs there. They allowed I guess, buildings to be closer in Hermosa Beach to the ocean than they were in Manhattan. So anyway, it was a very challenging set to do because we just didn't really have the space to do what you would normally do to cover for height and that sort of thing. That's the one thing I always missed, was having more height on the stages, which then takes me to the college. Mm-hmm. I designed that college set twice. I designed it so it was half outdoors and half indoors. And then Paul looked at it, and he'd have a cigarette, and he'd kind of look at it, and then he'd kind of smile at me, and then he'd go, "This is really beautiful, but we can't do this, Tom." And I'm like, "Well, why?" And he goes, "It's too much of what's outside, and then what if it rains, or what if it's in real life at a location, or what if it's cloudy and we can't?" And it's like, all right, I get it. So this was stage 4 then that we got just to build this, and I had more height there. So the peak roof of that student union almost hit the beams. It's just inches from the beams in that warehouse. And then I pretty much took all the ideas I had from the prior outdoor version and put them indoors, because we just needed places for people to come and go. So there's a student union store and the cafeteria, and there were, I don't even remember, steps. So it looked like it went up higher, even though it didn't really.
Well, I know that the Beverly Hills Beach Club had to be the most fun, but we've now watched a lot of these episodes and giving them second looks at things. And my favorite set that you did was the Student Union. It is such a incredibly interesting set. It allowed these directors to stage action differently. It just was, and it also showed the difference between, whoa, this is a show that now has some dollars to spend versus ones that were, pushing it to the limit. Am I right about that?
Yeah. Oh, you're right. In fact, I mean, I don't know if I'm jumping in on you there, Larry, but I noticed after the first 2 seasons, it seemed like the money kind of, maybe it went to other, I didn't know a whole lot, but maybe it went to more actors or something like that. I could feel like the budgets were going down. And then by season 4 and 5, it felt like they were throwing more money in. And I'm like, they think this show's got legs, and this is, really good for the show. But that's, from my point of view, that I felt that, but it may be that you guys were or managing the money in a way that I had no clue.
Well, remember, I think it would be that we spent more money on actors. We had many more guest casts and much more. So, somebody had to be deprived. Then we went eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and Tom, he can handle it. No, seriously, I have no idea about it. You're telling me something I didn't know.
It seemed to come back. But I've been on other shows since that go that long, and it always seems to get taken out of the art department.
Yeah.
So,
hey, the Pitch Pit After Dark was another great set you did, which was really big and sumptuous, and that was really useful too. Over the years, it really worked out well.
Well, thanks. It's it's windowless, so you have to come up with a lot of different points of light. But that was the beginning of everybody having personal computers, and so the interior of that was symbols from computer cable hookups and After Dark. Remember, there was a screensaver company called After Dark, and they let us use their name and logo kind of with that. And in fact, there was even social media. Social media back then was minimal, but we'd get comments that, oh yeah, there's money coming from that company, and there wasn't. And
product placement, yeah.
Product placement. Yeah, and then the whole border on the set was all zeros and ones, as though it was code. So if you look at that, it was zeros and ones.
Did you know that, Chuck?
You learn something new every day.
Mind blown. Yeah.
Take a look at the border. It's all binary numbers for code. So we were having fun.
That's interesting. Well, that was one of the things about season 5, but we talked about a little bit. We're going to be doing a deep dive on an episode sooner than later, we hope, called The Unreal World. And that was really one of the ones to show the impact of social media. Larry did that with the Rolling Stones episode. Girls, if you remember, the fire happened because of tech. Larry is the one who brought us into the digital age.
It's true. It was before WWW then, too. It was before the World Wide Web. It was just, because Fox had their own, what was called an ISP. It was called Delphi. So, we were product placement. We were doing product. I never was ashamed of product placement. I always thought it was okay. Were you okay with it? I was, more resources. But
Tom, you mentioned that you did some of the logos for some of the places. Did you do the California University one as well, or
yes?
Where do you come up with that? I mean, that's like one of the ones that identifies that school.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Well, I'm just grateful that you guys got a good name, California University. I don't even know if it's clear now. May not just because you own it, but it. I might have changed something afterwards when I chose the colors red and black because they're really strong. They also were where my grad school was red and black. But when you put them out on vertical banners on each side of a walkway, it has a little bit of that German feel. Yeah.
But I can see where you're going. Oh boy.
And I was like, I probably shouldn't have done that. But most colleges, there's a font that sort of goes with school. There's a look, and so you just look at a number of other schools and you glean from that and try to come up with something similar but unique.
We were just at the college as Occidental, as Larry mentioned, and their colors are also red and black.
It could be that I'm trying to remember now. That was some time ago, but sometimes when you're going to be around a place that has its own logos, you try to choose things that if you saw them in the distance, it would look like yours. Mm-hmm. So I've done that since, for sure. So I probably did it then. I might have learned it on the show.
Yeah, Chuck.
You know what I want to ask you about? It was about all the locations you're talking about, the location scouts. You're the production designer. There's a director. There's the AD. There's somebody from the camera department, right? There as well.
On the tech scouts, but not on the...
Oh, so who goes on the original scout? You and the location manager and the director?
The writer, too. The writer would go, Chuck.
Often, but we didn't usually have... We had writers on certain occasions.
Yeah, what about like you shot in the Rose Garden, for example, the fake Rose Garden in the end of season 4, which you would have done, Mr. Walsh, Washington, the White House.
That was over at the Natural History Museum, I believe.
Right.
Because they have a rose garden there. Occasionally we'd bring somebody along. A writer would want to join in, or Paul might want to join in. But usually it was the director and the location manager and myself and an AD. And we could at least narrow it down so that you guys could take a look at the photos and say, yeah, that works or doesn't work. And then ultimately we'd go out with the whole crew on a tech scout. But, there'd be battles there. Sometimes even with the location manager, we'd have a battle over, I remember wanting to use an architecture firm that I'd seen at the Spelling offices. And Marvin at the time, the location manager, goes, we're not going to go in the Spelling offices. I said, no, it's in the same building. And we had this kind of heated discussion in the van about it. And I finally kind of gave up. And the director, I want to say it was Dan Adius, said, let's go look at it. And Marvin was like, and he said, all right. And we went and looked at it. It was really perfect. It had very modern, really good look. They were willing to film. And so Marvin had to just clear it with the Spelling group. And they were just 2 floors up. And they said, no problem. So we got to use
what Marvin was worried about, right? Marvin was the first 2 years. He was worried about the unions. That it was making too much, shining too big of a light on the fact that the Spelling company was, in effect, producing a non-union television show, which was a no-no. But the episode, Larry, was The Pit and the Pendulum, the one where is the Peach Pit going to be sold or not, and torn down. Jim Walsh gets in a second. We're going to do a deep dive on that too in the next ones, because we've done all the other episodes. These are the ones we haven't done. No, not all of them, but certainly ones that have some interesting points to them
for sure. How about Dylan's house? That's also in Altadena, the exterior.
I love doing that set. It was that house. The location is in Pasadena. It had been moved once from several miles away, which when you look at the stonework, it's amazing they could move all that. But they did, and we got in there and we measured it. I've used those location photos since for other craftsman style homes, but we measured the heck out of it and we duplicated most of it on stage. And it shows. You could go in that house and walk around if we just redressed it with our dressing, and you wouldn't know you weren't on the set or at the location. You would get confused. So that one was, and I like the colors. That we had a good painter who did the woodwork beautifully. It was a good house to do, and it's sort of fitting for Luke. I thought.
Definitely.
Dylan.
So when you think of a location, which is the one that makes you cringe? Like, I can't believe we had to go there, and it was the most difficult one. I'm wondering, it had anything to do with that one that we did the Dreams of Dylan McKay, and we went to that abandoned tunnel and had to
I love that too.
Shoot in there. You love that? Yeah, tell us about that one.
Well, are you talking about the dream where he's in the tunnel and the train comes at him? Yeah. That was a blast. And I've told people since about that because they can't believe we got to film there, first of all. And because nobody can close that tunnel off anymore.
Where was it? Was this
It was in Griffith Park.
Oh, Griffith Park.
It's Griffith Park, and it's one of the tunnels that takes you to the observatory. Yeah, and we built a platform in there with columns, and the railroad track was all wood, of course, because real railroad track, you can't pick up a 2-foot length of it. It's too heavy. But they did a great lighting effect at the end, and I always liked those challenges. And it wasn't like it wasn't a hotel room or a hospital room, which become kind of all the same look. This was a very unique location to do and unique set. So that was fun.
Have you seen that lately, Chuck? We have to take a look at that one. I haven't seen that in so long. I mean,
I actually thought it was a different tunnel. So there you go.
I have to,
I have a stupid question for you, Tom. But you are the production designer, but you're an artist. And what's your favorite color?
I actually don't have a favorite color. I used to when I was, younger, but I don't have. I could say blue, no yellow. If you've ever seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I would now be in a. It's one of the scenes I think is the funniest because a guy can't remember his favorite color and he gets, because of that, the troll throws him into the river.
Exactly. I should ask you your archaeological sign now, I guess.
My what?
What's your sign?
I have a stupid one, Chuck. In the high school, when the first season, there's that like technology room, right? This is where Dylan and Brandon have that conversation. We just watched this in I forget what episode we were just watching, but the technology room suddenly goes away. Was the technology room important to have in the high school? And what was it like putting that together? And then why did you eventually eliminate the technology room?
We only had
I'm so glad you brought that up, Pete, since you spent 4 years never letting me forget that I had made the crew build a tech room that I think we used 3 times. Mm-hmm. Truthfully, what happened? So we didn't want to just have classrooms, the English class or that. It was, and we learned pretty early on in the first season that, unless there was a specific reason, like somebody was upset and had to run out of the class, or in the case of the AIDS episode where it really mattered what was being said and done in the classroom, we wanted to get some different, kind of thing. So the idea was that this would be such a cool Beverly Hills thing to have art mixed in with technology. And and the cutting edge. Well, I got to tell you, 1990, cutting edge was pretty dull. So all the things that I would want to do, it wasn't so great, you know. Well, look at this. Oh, that's all you got here? You know. So in my imagination of what art meets technology wouldn't be fulfilled to technology stepped up one or two rungs. So I believe what we did with that space, Pete, is that Tom repurposed it into other things.
Yeah,
that's what happens. And that's what happened with that part. There's that one room I was telling you about in our high school set, and we would redress it to become whatever, and it became that briefly. And you could look out windows into a hallway. We'd change the hallway too, so that it looked like a different space in the school. Mm-hmm. So things happen. You know, at one point we were going to put in I had designed into the college. What do you call those rooms? Now I'm going to blank on it.
Lab?
Multi-level auditorium space, a lecture hall.
Yeah.
You know, and we figured out how to make all of it wild, and it wasn't huge. And I remember talking to Paul about it, and Paul was like, "I don't think it's worth spending the money on, and we'll never use it." And I was like, I was really bummed because I thought it looked good and said college, you know. Well, we didn't do it, and we didn't ultimately need it. And the funny thing is, since that time, I've had two shows. One that I did where I actually built a hall like that, a room like that. They used it once, and it sat there the rest of the time. And and another one was a hospital show that I ended up taking over the stages, and they only used it, I think, twice out of 2 seasons that they were on. So it turns out they don't get used very much. Hard to film.
We did a lot of practical sets at the college, didn't we, as well? Didn't we?
Oh, yes.
I mean, a big number. Like, for instance, the practice room that Brian used to play the piano with the teacher who was blind.
Yeah.
That to me looks like it's right on the college. Now you could have built it. I mean, I know you know it was one or the other, but so many of them, like where Lucinda Nicholson's classrooms and things, they just look really, really authentic.
Yes.
Were we building hallways and things, or did we go making our day? We just shoot down there.
I think it was double ups too, Chuck. That's why we had to be off the set, because the other company was on the set. So I think we gave ourselves more days on the campus those days.
And there wasn't tons of extra space. Right. So, yeah, you kind of do what your schedule will let you do at a location that offers you all of that before you spend the money to build it, unless you know you're going to go there frequently. But you're right. During double ups, we had the scheduling czar who had to figure out how all those actors went from one to another show. I mean, that was a lot of work to get those done, and not many shows do that.
What about the radio station? Was that on campus, or was that something that you guys built?
We built that, and that was a lot of fun to do too, because you research radio stations and college radio stations, and then try to make it look real as we could. And back then, of course, it was vinyl with, I think, maybe some CDs. There were CDs happening, but it was mostly vinyl.
CDs were like brand. I remember in the Isn't It Romantic episode, they say, well, let's go back into my house and listen to CDs. It's actually in it because they made us change the law. I forget which one of our actors said, no, we wouldn't be listening to albums. We'd be listening
to cassettes. Cassettes were
okay, fine, you know.
Yeah, it all changed right then. I can remember the arguments. Oh, 8-tracks. I never liked 8-tracks. I don't know.
I miss 8-tracks.
Freeway.
It was bulky. It was big.
Yeah, but you put the thing in, and you put a button, and it played. You didn't have to put the thing in, hit the button, and then read a magazine while the digital world is trying to figure out if we're going to connect it. You know,
you know, 8-tracks to go forward. You know, I'm going to get to the next song, and
my analog bias here.
Yeah.
Everybody's going off and on now. I think that's the ghost. 8-track is going, you're making fun of me? The ghost of 8-track kind of interfering with stuff we're doing.
A recent statistic, more LPs, more vinyl is selling now than CDs.
I believe
right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's all gone to streaming. Everyone, I mean, there's monthly subscription services, and that's just the way it is. You have all on-demand music. It's fabulous.
It's truly is fantastic. So.
What about things like the Keg House? Right, that was that's a fun one.
Wow.
That was on campus. Really, we shot that stuff on campus.
It was on campus. That's right. It was one of the home nearby. That's what it was. Occidental College was really a great location to film. It wasn't easy to get. Then we got it. I think the only other thing that ever filmed there up to that point was Clueless, the movie Clueless. And then since that time, since 90210, they've been difficult to allow filming. I think I was on one other series that got to film there. But they're pretty, they're pretty reserved about who they let film there. And we got really good access. There was an episode about, what is it? The movement, I want to say Into the Night or
Take Back the Night.
Take Back the Night,
Take Back the Night. Yeah, we had
that one yet, yeah.
That one was pretty good. We filmed it there and we had a big banner, but there was some student who wouldn't quit playing his stereo too loud because he didn't want us filming. You get that.
Yeah.
But
we got that. Let's say there were 5,000 students, 3,000 students in Occidental. We got that from 2,500 of the students.
Yeah.
Why it's so hard to get to Occidental? Students were very angry at their administration for making the deal, not realizing that it was that deal that was keeping their tuitions down.
Yeah.
That's a separate conversation.
Yeah. And now they're proud to say that that's where it was filmed, I'm sure.
I bet you're right. That's what happened. But, students like to rebel against whatever. And that was an easy target. So we were an easy target. It's, brings them all together.
We talked a little bit about the Peach Pit before, and that went through multiple changes. But I mean, it's a key location for the show. I mean, so much happens at the Peach Pit. What about the exterior? Is here in Pasadena, I think, right?
You made me think of it immediately when you started that.
Yeah.
It was a hamburger joint, part of a chain originally. And the interior sort of had a feel of ours. So if you look through the windows, it might look similar, but the windows were totally different. The entrance was totally different. So we built an entire facade on the front of this hamburger place on, was it Fair Oaks or Arroyo Grande? Something like that.
Fair Oaks.
And so it looked like the Peach Pit on the outside for a day, I guess, or maybe two. And we filmed all the stock shots then and some entrances and exits.
And Larry, because they had to do this in Pasadena and rebuild the set and everything else, they did it while we were doing the summer episodes. So we come back to it. So because we didn't play an episode in the Peach Pit from the first one to the last one, where Brandon leaves the job and then Brandon comes back to the job. So that gave us a month to do the kind of work that Tom's talking about.
Yeah, we pre-built it and then installed it in a day.
So there's no Peach Pits in those episodes in between?
There was no reason to. Brandon didn't work there. He had said goodbye. Yeah. He had gone to work at the Beach Club. And so that gave us the space. And that's one of the reasons.
No paycheck for Joey.
One of the reasons, but something we took advantage of. The truth is, I didn't know you guys were going to change the Peach Pit until you did it.
Oh, really?
That was Paul's surprise to me. Yeah.
I had no idea. I just sort of did what I was asked to do, and but I did know that the older Peach Pit that matched the Apple Pan was just impossible to film in. It just was shoehorned into the back corner of stage one, and so there was this problem that had to be resolved. Past that, I just, took over what I had to do, and so I'm sorry if you didn't know about that.
It was a good surprise.
Yeah, I mean, the authenticity on all these sets is incredible. The Peach Pit in particular. I mean, I feel like I'm in a diner. You feel that authenticity whenever they're in there. So kudos to you on that work. Do you guys have any other spots or locations that you guys want to ask them about?
I just want to say that for me, the one set that I see that was right when you were starting that I think was really, from the art standpoint, captured the character so perfectly, and that's Kelly Taylor's bedroom. The red color, the silk screens you had there, it just seemed perfect for her. And I guess that was you. So thank you for that one.
I think Jill Henkel, our decorator, did a great job. You know, there's something interesting about that one set. I originally thought a teal color would be good. And so we had the room painted teal. And I brought Jenny in. I just want to see how you look in here. Well, you know, Jenny had the most beautiful alabaster skin, and her blonde hair looked great against that teal, but every vein in her face showed up because of that teal color. It was just like, oh my, this is really not going to work. So that's how we ended up going to the
interesting.
You know, the other thing is the Western show. You did a great job capturing the Western Village and just putting that all together. You remember that show?
Yeah, that was fun too. I always loved getting out and doing something that was unusual for the show. That was one that was unusual. So, yeah, those.
Well, you even created Paris, right? That was something.
Yeah, that was great.
Paris was a lot of fun. I mean, we shot some of that at Huntington, wasn't it Huntington Gardens? And
Huntington Library and back lot at Universal a lot.
And the back, right? We used the European area there. Yes. And, you know, since 90210 was over, I filmed back on that back lot on 2 movies and another television show. And the tour that goes around up until probably about 5 years ago, so out of 30 years, they would go, and Beverly Hills 90210 filmed here. You'd hear it every time. It was so funny to hear. It's like, yeah, I know.
I was there, right? Yeah.
Been there, done that. So
well, even
the show goes on.
At some point, you guys created Mexico too, right? There was in Malibu. Was that where Mexico was? Where was Mexico?
We did it numerous places. One part of it was on the back lot at Universal, and then we also filmed. It's called the Adamson Museum now. It was the it's a park. It was the Malibu Tile Estate, and then there was like a shack nearby, and it was like falling apart. We added to it, and I think somehow I want to say Shannon's character was pulled off the side of the road there. Anyway, we had the side of the road. We had this house where it was Mexican. I think there was a little dance sequence or party there. And those were really good locations. They looked like kind of upscale, but old Mexico. So we did a lot of things. You reminded me of them. I've had a lot of sets since this time. And then you bring these up and it's like, wow, yeah, we did that. We did this. It was really a good learning curve for me as well as a good job and nice people. And that makes a difference. I learned nice people makes a huge difference because I've been on shows since where it was all a family with you guys, Spelling and Chuck and Paul and Larry and the rest. That was like a family, and then you move on and find out not every show is like a family.
Yeah, well, that's the truth. I didn't do that much episodic because I was a TV movie writer, and I just always thought they'd be so wonderful, and they never were.
Yeah, it's interesting how you learn over time. Paul used to always say, "Be careful what you wish for." Because I'd go, I want to get it in a big movie, you know. And I got to go work on a big movie. It was okay, but it wasn't family, you know. So.
All right. Well, I think this was great, guys. What do you think? Right? Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.